right, my next guest will be fighting at LFA 122 on January the 21st. And of course, it is William Starks on the show. William, how are you?
I'm well, happy to be here and 1 week out, so feeling pretty good. Glad to be
Yeah,
tapering camp.
absolutely. So all the hard work is done now. Now it's pretty much just fine tuning a few things, getting that weight off. How has this camp been? Are you feeling pretty healthy right now?
Yeah, so I mean, no injuries at all during this camp. I'm the normal minor aches and pains just from pushing the agenda, but as far as peaking and tapering goes, I definitely pushed myself this camp. It was notably more difficult just because the level in our gym, the skill level that is, has increased tremendously. So a lot of the beginners are no longer green, and foundationally they're presenting some problems that make practices generally more difficult. And then obviously I have my main training partners, Darien Weeks, who's now with the UFC, is a welterweight. Dallas Jennings, he's fought on LFA as well, and he's a welterweight too. And then our new wrestling coach, Ty Lathan, he was actually a former teammate of mine at the University of Central Missouri back in 2012. He's a Division II All-American, and he would be a welterweight, if he was a fighter, but as a wrestling partner, he's a brutalizing brutalizing training goes. So I have some bigger, very skilled guys that are also fast, and they're pushing me a lot.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And it sounds like you've got quite a stable of great training partners around you. You did mention Darian. So I just want to ask about him. How is he looking? Does he have a fight lined up here in the near future?
Not that I know of. Right now, he seems to be in like out of camp period. I think he's just putting on a little size so they could transfer it over to sport specific strength and power. But he's better than ever. Like I said, the rounds that we've had for our hard sparring days. I'm quoting my coach and a few other spectators. They say it's UFC pay-per-view worthy. So obviously, I don't know if they're just hyping us up to keep us confident, or just because they're partial, or how much truth there is there. But he's definitely looking amazing.
Yeah, I can't wait to see him whenever it is that he does fight next. In doing my research for this interview, I did notice that you had quite an extensive amateur background. I believe your record was 15-1 before you decided to make the jumps to the pro ranks. How pleased are you with where you're at right now, and just your evolution as a fighter, and being 7-2 right now as a pro?
Yeah, so I think Tapology or whatever has me recorded at 15-1. In total, there are a lot of fights that actually weren't put on there. So unofficially, I'm 22-1 actually as an amateur, and I had my stint with the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation and won 2 world titles with them. That felt good. It felt I got to be part of what I would consider the pioneers for the future of the sport, where hopefully MMA will be in the Olympics, and there'll be more of a standardized approach to amateur competition to pro, and in the same way that we see with boxers, or with high school to college to Olympic wrestling. So I got a tremendous amount of experience. I got to learn how Rob, my head coach, he's always been big not only on blending the MMA styles, so we're not locked into an individualistic type of approach, but that also we can manage the mental side of performance, and learning how to deal with anxiety, manage doubts going into competition, and regulating the nervous system so that you don't have the adrenaline dump and you can manage your energy efficiently during competition, is all something I think should be hashed out or figured out during your amateur career, so that when you turn pro, you have what I now understand as an MMA identity, so that you can navigate your pro career within it, and then you can expand on it, until it's time for you to hang up your gloves. So yes, at 7-2 now, I have an understanding of who I am as a mixed martial artist, and in what direction I think will my training and the partners or rather my circle, in what direction it'll serve me best.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. One of the things one of the reasons why I fell in love with MMA, I started watching boxing when I was a little kid, and I still love boxing. Back in the heyday with Mike Tyson, I mean, I didn't miss a fight, but MMA you have to train every single discipline, period. Like you have to be so well rounded to make it to the highest of levels. And that's what I appreciate so much about, mixed martial artists and the training that you guys go through. When you look at your overall game, what area do you feel like you've grown the most since you turned pro?
Mm. Definitely I think my striking has like my striking IQ has improved tremendously in that my willingness to stay closer in the pocket and play the chess match there with confidence without taking damage. That's improved tremendously. So you talked about training multiple disciplines. I've talked to many interviewers and teammates, and I've even done posts on social media about the 4 pillars of MMA. And this is something that Pat Miletich and I spoke on in December of 2020 when I had fought Slava Borshev. And so, 4 pillars, you have, you go boxing, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and wrestling. And then obviously, I mean, you can go an infinite amount of directions all the way back to their ancestral roots. But, if you organize MMA in that manner, you can, like you say, or kind of like you're asking, you can figure out which area or which pillar needs to be improved upon most to give you or to help you achieve the most comprehensive MMA game. And so, like I started with my background in MMA really started with wrestling. I wrestled my senior year of high school, and then I walked on to the University of Central Missouri. I was kind of boxing around that time too, when I made my amateur MMA debut. But from there, like I said, Rob has more of a background in sambo and no holds barred, so he understands fighting very well. So he never really taught an individual style. He just taught MMA. Like, this is how you punch someone, get him against the wall, beat him up, and look for submissions if you get to the ground. Um, and so that served me well, and that I never, like, my background was in essence pure MMA. But as of recently, catching up to speed with some of the I guess the shift in striking that MMA has seen now with the introduction of a lot of Eastern traditional martial arts. You're seeing Muay Thai, high level Muay Thai strikers in the sport now, Dutch kickboxers, and then karate and taekwondo practitioners blending their game with grappling. So getting caught up in that area, I would say has helped me tremendously. It's probably been the most recent improvement in my game.
Gotcha. And you're 7-2 now as a pro. If you can go to 8-2, it seems like you'd be the perfect candidate for maybe Contender Series whenever that starts up here again next. What are your goals here in 2022? Like, I got to imagine if you're fighting for LFA for a third time, you've won twice there, you're 2-0, you could be 3-0 in LFA. Maybe Contender Series and the UFC is next for you. Like, what are you hoping is that next step?
Yeah, I think that's the plan. So, I talked with my agent with Paradigm Sports, and we have a 3-fight contract deal with LFA right now. But, it's not either question that this fight, putting me at 8-2 as a pro and 30-3 in my overall career record, which that's I gotta give credit to my training partner Trey. He was like, man, that puts you at a 90% win ratio. That's pretty damn good. And I do think uh, it wouldn't be out of the question that a Contender Series or maybe even just a UFC call up, depending on how things work, could be in the works. But that being said, I am focused on this fight and then the next two. If that's the way it goes, maybe a regional title with LFA to put on my resume. But getting signed by the UFC is absolutely my goal by, I say, Q3 of this year.
What did you learn from those two losses as a pro?
So the first loss that I had, it was a brutal knockout with Michael Cora. I probably should have been fighting at lightweight a lot earlier. I didn't have a lot of experience with big weight cuts uh, during that time, and my I would say my lifestyle, like I was definitely a dedicated martial artist at the time, but I would say my environment, like my home environment, wasn't really conducive to a high level professional career. So I think on that end, I learned that putting myself in the best place to ensure that fight training and then all my other goals move smoothly in the direction I wanted to was crucial. Your circle and the people you surround yourself with are a reflection or a representation of who you are. So that was the big thing on that, and making, and then training smarter as well. I had some, it hasn't been not necessarily injured. I had so I dealt with a concussion going into the fight, and then even after the fight, I was stubborn, and trying to get back into things too quickly. Ended up having an ACL tear, months afterwards. So that kind of derailed me and put me on like a 3-year spirit journey, if you will, to get back on track. So just being smarter was the first thing, and then with my loss against Abdurrahman last January, it was an opportunity that was, really shortly after the Slava fight. That fight was frustrating to me. I'm not gonna lie. It's one thing to just getting, like I got knocked out, in my first loss. I just had to step up and learn from it. This fight it was close. I beat myself up for it because it was one of those things where, maybe had I exerted myself a little earlier, tried to play a faster game of combat chess, if you will, and just gutted it out and embraced the suck in the fight. Maybe I could have edged the decision, uh, you know, that was just tough. That was one of those fights where I probably could have just tried harder earlier, and I waited too late to start implementing my strategy. I thought I did a decent job, but just not good enough.
And that was in Abu Dhabi, right? So that time difference must have messed with you a little bit too.
Yeah, it was. So from a logistics standpoint, going from Missouri to Texas to London to then Dubai, where we're like held up at the border forever with COVID regulations. So that made it really hard. The weight, there's a really funny story, funny to me at least, with the weight cut. Since I was a sports science background, so I'm like, going through my notes and I had an intern opportunity with Renaissance Periodization, so I'm trying to make sure I'm doing a good job and representing them well, like showing social media how I'm systematically approaching my weight cut algorithmically. And then I end up waking up Wednesday morning and my weight is like way off, and I'm like 2 days out from, or 1 day out from weigh-ins, and I'm like, how in the world do I weigh this much right now? I'm like going through my notes and having to figure things out on the fly, and so yeah, and then the time change on top of that. So there were a lot of variables that just made the fight a bit more difficult than I would have liked it. But such is part of the job. Such as life. So that was just a good learning experience, and just preparing for the intangibles, where it's like, okay, did not quite expect or anticipate this obstacle. How do I auto regulate, and what is the best way? Or what are the best decisions to make to still ensure my top performance?
And you mentioned weight, and now you're down at lightweight 155. What are you walking around at these days? How is that cut? Is it pretty doable?
Yeah, it's doable. I mean, weight cutting is not ideal ever, period. So I mean, like I'd be lying. I think most fighters, say, yeah, what's smooth and everything. Like, yeah, it can go, it can go really bad or it can go really good. But even when it's going really good, it's never that fun. That being said, I usually walk around the mid 170s. If I have a long layoff between fights, I'll take time to maybe go through a planned masking phase, just to put on a little more lean tissue and see. And again, as I was saying with Darien, see a little more transfer to sport specific strength and power as I get closer to fights. But otherwise, I really focus on getting as strong as reasonably possible at that given weight range. Like I said, mid 170s, and just maintaining that, that's my natural, normal, healthy body weight for the time being as a fighter. And it makes it really easy then to get within that safe range for the water weight cutting protocol.
And this fight, LFA 122, will be in St. Louis, Missouri. Who will be with you there? Come fighting. Who will be in your corner? And do you expect to have some support in the stands?
So as far as cornering, my head coach Rob Hewlett, and then my main training partners Dallas Jennings, he'll be handling the jiu-jitsu end, and then Darien Weeks will be handling the striking end. So we all work together well together on that end. I'm excited because this will be the first time I'll have three people in a corner, at least I can remember. And I also have my girlfriend with me, Katie. She so she's working on her massage therapy license, and she's a certified trainer and nutritionist as well. So we share this. As she trains MMA, in the background, so we share that similar lifestyle. We understand how it feels and what we go through. So she'll be there supporting in the stands and in the hotel, obviously. And then I know I have a few of my teammates and training partners supporting in the stands also. So I don't think I have a huge crowd. It won't be like last time I was with LFA, Irfan, the entire St. Louis Bosnian community there. It won't be anything like that, but I have a few people out there supporting.
All right, and your opponent, I mean, his name, Glaucio Eliziario. I probably butchered that, but
That's
that's
the best. I think the best, maybe second best that any interviewer has done. I'm not going to attempt to do it. Great job.
fair enough. So his record's 9-7. And what stands out to me with this is, I mean, look, that's still a respectable record. Anytime you're over 500 as a pro, you're doing something right. But I got to imagine for you, this is kind of one of those fights that may be a little tricky because you're 7-2. I got to imagine you're a heavy favorite. People are going and expecting you to win this fight. Does that put any added pressure on you? Do you feel that pressure to go in there and not just win, but win decisively when you're fighting someone who isn't, 10-2 or 11-1 or something like that?
So honestly, not as much anymore. It'd be a lie to say absolutely no. There's always a little bit of pressure. For first, there's just self-imposed pressure to do well. You want to meet your as an athlete or a performer, you want to meet your own expectations, and if you're lucky, you'll exceed them. Then you want to do right by your coaches and your training partners as well, because they've invested in you, and your friends and family don't want to see you get hurt and whatnot. So you want to do well there. Do well for Paradigm, and I'm kicking off the year for them as their first athlete on the management roster to compete this year. As far as winning decisively against the 9-7 guy, I mean, yeah, he's barely above 500, but that's a lot of pro fighting experience. And I'm sure there's a lot of amateur experience behind that, and that's a lot of time spent in the gym in his he's training out of Brazil. I don't even know how to pronounce the gym's name. Is Nova Unio, I believe is the pronunciation. I'll do better in future interviews. So he has that Aldo, the Aldo energy. The culture there. They're not afraid to get hit. He's an aggressive, forward-moving striker. He starts fast. It's not necessarily going to be an easy fight. I'm going to have to follow my P's and Q's. I'm going to stick with my foundations, or my fundamentals, and seize the opportunities as they open up. As far as pressure goes, the only pressure would be, can I show LFA and UFC Fight Pass viewers, and Dana White, that I can shine, against a tough guy that I should beat, but can I shine in a unique way that makes me, a worthy candidate to get signed to the UFC? And that's what we get to see next Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned UFC Fight Pass, because there will be a lot of eyeballs on not just your fight, but the whole event in general. So you talked a little bit about his style coming from Brazil, kind of like that Aldo style, going to march you down, start strong. How do you see this fight playing out? Do you have a prediction as to how it ends?
So earlier I mentioned discovering your MMA identity, and I think a good parallel to draw with that would be like a jiu-jitsu student ranking up. And I've heard many of black belts kind of just describe the process where you're a white belt in jiu-jitsu and you know nothing about the sport. You're like, I don't understand why I'm on my back or why I'm on my feet or what the goal is. And then eventually you kind of piece things together and you're like, oh, okay, we're on the feet, got to get into the ground. Now that I'm on the ground, if I'm on top, I should probably stay here and get past this guy's legs or whatever. Or if I'm on bottom, I have some options to choke him out, but maybe I should get on top. And then once your coach sees that you're competent and you have a good understanding of the overall goal, you're blue belts. And then as a blue belt, you're like, okay, now that I know what to do, how do I figure out how to do these things the best? And then you're like, dang, I'm kind of good at arm bars. I'm like really good at arm bars, actually. I'm going to figure out how to get arm bars as many times as I can, and then eventually you just become really good at getting arm bars on somebody. And your coach is like, he's an arm bar guy. You're a purple belt. Congratulations. Now figure out how to, create the most savage armbar game. You get from bottom and top. And then eventually you're like, well, now I'm exploring other, really unique ways to get to an armbar, or, even transition to a, whatever, a kimura or something like that. And then you piece things together and you're a brown belt, then you expand on your game. So same thing for MMA. You eventually discover what you're like, who you are as a fighter, and what your best route to success or to victory is. And in my case, I think I'm pretty well rounded. I have a good grappling foundation, but for the most part, I spend my time staying in good position and outpointing my opponent, or outflanking them, or navigating inside of their space until they wear down or make a big enough mistake that I capitalize on an opportunity to either get it to the floor, where they wear down, and they usually give me a choke, or give me an arm. So I'm probably just going to wear this guy down until eventually time runs out, or until we end up on the ground and I choke him out.
All right. Well, we'll find out at LFA 122, all going down January 21st. And if you can't be there in St. Louis, Missouri, make sure you watch it on UFC Fight Pass. Will Starks, pleasure interviewing you for the first time, my man. Before I let you go, I want to give you the floor. Tell people where to follow you on social media. And if you have anyone to thank, any sponsors, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. You guys can find me at Will Starks MMA on Instagram. Same thing with Twitter. Huge thanks to Hewlett House MMA and all the coaching staff there. You guys know who you are. I also want to thank Charlie Goodwin with NutriShop coming in and busting your ass. And I know you're new to MMA training, and but we appreciate having you in as a body and as a representative for a brand and a company that helps people take good care of themselves and pursue their fitness goals. And then Renaissance Periodization for being the pioneers in sports science and producing quality content, peer-reviewed content, to help people find or navigate through their goals using the surest path, which is science. And I think that's all I really have. Paradigm Sports Agency as well, and my agent Carl Reed. Thank you guys for giving me an opportunity to build a platform to not only be successful as an athlete, but to hopefully inspire others and to get them there, get them to where I'm at and beyond, faster and safer.